questions for me. So, all right. So this is that's you, and then I come on. All right, and then.
Hi, everybody. If I could ask everyone to take their seats, please. I'm going to give another minute here. Welcome, everyone. If I could ask you to take your seats, it is time to get underway. Great. Thank you very much. Hi, my name's Will Barry, and I'm a co-chair of the Branton Committee, along with my fellow co-chairs, Jeannie Rhee and Mark Guerrera, and our board chairs, Avis Buchanan and Brian Schneider. I am delighted to welcome you to the 2026 Wiley Branton Award Luncheons. Welcome. Thank you for joining us to celebrate the important work of the Washington Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and Urban Affairs. Together, our brilliant staff and pro bono partners are striving to defend and to advance civil rights here in DC, the DMV, and across the country. I am excited to announce that together we have raised $1.55 million. This is an all-time high for the Washington Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. It comprises 30% of our annual revenue. Thank you to everyone who contributed to this record-breaking event. We are within striking distance of reaching our Branton goal for 2026 of $1.6 million. So thank you for what you've done, thank you for what you will do, and thank you for being here today. I now have the distinct pleasure of introducing Joanne Lynn, who became Executive Director of the Washington Lawyers Committee in April of 2023. Over the past 3 years, Joanne has led the Washington Lawyers Committee through a time of unprecedented assaults on civil rights, on immigrants' rights, and on DC autonomy. Just last week, Joanne and the Washington Lawyers Committee staff were honored by the Council for Court Excellence with the Justice Potter Stewart Award for their significant contributions to the law and the legal system here in Washington, D.C. Please join me in welcoming Joanne Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you, Will, for that very warm and generous introduction. And good afternoon to all the supporters of the Washington Lawyers Committee. This is a ballroom packed full of energy and passion, and I am delighted to be here with all of you. I am so grateful for the leadership and the service of Will Barry, Jeannie Rhee, and Mark Guerrera, our 2026 Wiley Branton Committee chairs. Under your leadership, the Branton Committee has set a record for the Washington Lawyers Committee. Thank you for working so tirelessly these many months to make today's event a success. It is a joy and privilege to partner with you in the cause of racial justice and civil rights. Would the members of the Branton Committee and the Washington Lawyers Committee Board of Directors please stand and be recognized? I say this often, and I mean it from my heart. I think I have the best board of directors in the entire country, and it is an honor to work with all of you day in and day out. Thank you to the 67 law firms, companies, and organizations that have generously sponsored today's event. Special thanks to Skadden Arps, Sidley Austin, Kirkland & Ellis, Latham Watkins, Covington & Burling, Paul Hastings, and Wilkie Farr. And 1,000 thanks to all 67 of our generous sponsors. In April, we wrapped up our annual Associates campaign, raising nearly $560,000 Special shout out to Wilmer Hale for raising over $60,000 and finishing atop the leaderboard for 6 consecutive years. We also salute the other top associates campaign teams, Wilkie Farr, Jenner and Block, Wilkinson Steckloff, Sidley Austin, and Axon Veltrop. Finally, and most importantly, I want to thank the heart and soul of the Washington Lawyers Committee, our staff. Our staff are a small but mighty army of paralegals, advocates, fundraisers, lawyers, and interns who work day in and day out to make justice real for low-income communities of color in the DMV. Would the staff of the Washington Lawyers Committee please stand and be recognized? I consider it an honor to come to work each day with each and every one of you and to learn from and work alongside all of you in the cause of justice. Every year, the Washington, D.C. legal community comes together at the Wiley Branton Awards Luncheon to honor our civil rights leaders, to celebrate outstanding pro bono achievement, and to renew our collective commitment to racial and economic justice. We gather in person to draw strength from one another, to remind ourselves why we went to law school in the first place, and to recommit to our shared civil rights mission. This has never been more important than it is now in 2026, at a time when the ground under our feet has shifted dramatically and the national civil rights landscape has been turned inside out and upside down. Under the current administration, the federal government, once the guardian of civil rights, has exited the business of civil rights enforcement. Over the past year, the administration has demolished civil rights enforcement in the Departments of Justice, Education, Housing and Urban Development, Health and Human Services, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and other agencies. The administration has conducted mass firings of hundreds of government professionals who have dedicated years, in some cases decades, to enforcing our nation's civil rights law. The administration has also ended DEI initiatives, protections for transgender individuals, and systemic disparate impact discrimination litigation. And finally, the administration has weaponized civil rights laws to prioritize and protect a select few in direct contravention of decades of policy and practice under prior presidential administrations. It has become crystal clear that we can no longer look to the federal government to investigate, prosecute, and enforce our civil rights laws. Rather, the business of civil rights enforcement has to be picked up by the nonprofit sector, the private community, and state and local leaders. Meeting this moment requires an all-of-society response involving the legal, corporate, philanthropic, and nonprofit sectors, as well as government at all levels. Today, we will be honoring civil rights leaders for their integrity, courage, and leadership. Today's honorees include clients and community organizations, pro bono attorneys, corporate leaders, and of course, alumni of the Justice Department Civil Rights Division. In 2022, Cleary Gottlieb, along with Washington Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, filed a lawsuit on behalf of Michael Rowe, a father who had been assaulted by special police officers. SPOs are private officers who receive little training but are authorized under DC law to carry firearms and make arrests. Mr. Rowe was dropping off his mother and sister at their home in Southeast DC. With his 3 young children in the car, Mr. Rowe attempted to drive out of the property parking garage, but found it blocked by a group of SPOs. Mr. Rowe and the SPOs exchanged words. The SPOs then pepper sprayed him in the face, assaulted him, and threatened to shoot. After the Metropolitan Police arrived on the scene, they released Mr. Rowe and told him he would not be arrested. He sought medical treatment for his injuries and suffered severe emotional distress. With the assistance of Cleary Gottlieb, Mr. Rowe sued the building management and the company employing the SPOs. The matter was successfully resolved out of court. I'm pleased to share that Mr. Rowe has joined us today. Mr. Rowe, would you and your Cleary team please stand and be recognized? We commend you for standing up to police abuse and congratulate Cleary Gottlieb for outstanding achievement. The next Outstanding Achievement Award goes to the law firm Gilbert LLP. Gilbert joined forces with the Washington Lawyers Committee to represent Ana and Carmela, 2 Latina construction workers who were subjected to sexual harassment and retaliatory termination. The women filed suit alleging that their supervisors subjected them to daily derogatory comments and restricted their access to basic hygiene facilities. The Gilbert team secured a successful settlement for Ana and Carmela. Congratulations to the Gilbert Pro Bono team for outstanding achievement in advancing workers' rights, gender justice, and immigrant justice. Gilbert may be a small firm, but they are a pro bono powerhouse. Today, we are honoring 2 separate Gilbert pro bono teams for outstanding achievement. Here is the story of the second Gilbert team.
Religious freedom is a fundamental principle of our democracy. As people, all of us deserve the right to exercise our chosen religion, to do so freely, and to do so without interference from the government. And that's been a long-standing principle of our Constitution.
The current administration rescinded the sensitive locations memo, which had prohibited ICE enforcement activity and federal law enforcement, immigration enforcement at sensitive locations such as churches. This led to a drop in attendance at many churches and other places of worship around the country.
People were not coming to worship. People were not coming to food pantries and Bible study classes and other activities that were being held at houses of worship. People were not comfortable even coming in certain areas around churches because some of the parking lots have begun to be used as sort of ICE staging locations.
When the Trump administration took away a basic human right, a basic American right of being able to worship in peace and security, to be able to pray and sing and be with other people in community worshiping God. When those rights were taken away, I was delighted when Democracy Forward and the Washington Lawyers Committee brought this lawsuit because I felt so helpless.
The preliminary injunction stated that ICE and other law enforcement could not conduct immigration enforcement at our plaintiff church organizations. Our 11 organizations, because they are associations that include multiple churches around the country, covers roughly 5,500 individual churches who now have protection from immigration enforcement.
The response has been overwhelmingly positive. People have said, thank you for standing up. Just worshiped on Sunday at one of our Latino churches. And the pastor is a Venezuelan migrant himself. Said, I've been a pastor for 41 years in Venezuela and here. Never been prouder of being a part of this church than I am right now. We've got to stand together or this world is going to tear us apart.
Thank you and congratulations to Gilbert for outstanding pro bono achievement. The next award was established in 2024 to recognize a corporate citizen for outstanding leadership and commitment to civil rights. Economic and racial justice cannot be achieved through the work of the legal sector alone. This mission requires an all-of-society strategy, including strong leadership from the business community. In January 2026, the attention of the whole country, indeed the world, turned to Minneapolis as this administration surged and deployed 3,000 Homeland Security agents throughout the neighborhoods and streets of Minneapolis. This DHS operation led to the fatal shootings of 2 U.S. citizens in broad daylight, Renee Good and Alex Preddy. In response, thousands of Minnesotans, braving record sub-zero temperatures, delivered food baskets to immigrant families, arose at pre-dawn hours to drive their neighbors to work, and organized safe passage for children to and from school, all while protesting, marching, singing, and praying in peace. In this critical moment, Patagonia, the outdoor apparel company, quickly sprung into action, publicly condemning DHS's violent actions. The Patagonia CEO wrote to senators urging them to block additional funding for ICE immigration customs enforcement. Patagonia cited serious concerns over lethal violence by DHS agents, the militarization of cities, and the tragic pattern of immigration agents snatching U.S. citizens and detaining children as young as 5. In a letter to the Senate, Patagonia made clear, quote, "This downward spiral demands checks and balances and accountability. Congress has actual power to force a reckoning and create change, and it starts by ending further funding for ICE as leverage to demand a new course that protects human beings." ICE funding in 2026, as we all know, has become the epicenter of a historic legislative battle, sparking a record-breaking 76-day partial government shutdown from February 14th through April 30th. Senate Democrats refused to fund ICE and CBP, demanding stronger warrant requirements and professional law enforcement standards. It was only after Senate Republicans agreed to remove ICE and Border Patrol funding from the main DHS appropriations bill that Congress resolved the stalemate and reopened DHS in early May. Patagonia was one of the first companies to call for a halt to ICE funding. Patagonia's corporate leadership played a critical role in creating public pressure on Congress to rein in DHS's violent tactics. Patagonia has exemplified corporate citizen leadership, both in Congress and the business sector. I am pleased to present the 2026 Corporate Citizen Leadership Award to Patagonia. Here to accept the award are Hillary DeSucchi, Patagonia General Counsel, Corley Kenna, Chief Impact and Communications Officer, and Alexa Lacardi, Chief of Staff.
Starting in August of last year, the administration surged federal immigration agents into the District of Columbia, as well as the National Guard. People who lived in neighborhoods like Columbia Heights or Petworth saw roving patrols going through their neighborhoods all through the day, stopping by Home Depots and just picking people up, arresting them without asking any questions about who they are, how long they've lived in DC, and without any probable cause.
The trauma that this policy has had on immigrant communities in DC really can't be overstated. People they're afraid to leave their homes, they're afraid to send their kids to school, they're afraid to go to work, they're afraid to go to church. They're essentially creating a class of people who are not able to participate in daily life the way everyone else is. And I want to be clear, no one should have to suffer this, but even people who have status reasonably fear immigration enforcement.
We've spoken with many class members who have faced unlawful arrests in the district, and they have faced horrendous conditions in confinement. And all of that starts from the point of this unlawful arrest. People that I've personally spoken with have been in detention for multiple months, have been put into a room with 70 or more people who are deprived of any hygiene products, are sometimes given just one cold burrito per day that they're not able to keep down. They are in a room that just has one open toilet, no bedding, people are forced to drink toilet water, are put in a room that's freezing cold with no bedding, are shipped around the country on airplanes with their hands chained to their feet, facing verbal, physical abuse from guards. It puts someone into a system that takes them away from their family, takes them away from their kids, from their jobs, from their livelihoods, from their community.
We have seen at an alarming rate community members being targeted, right, on their way to school, on their way to work. We've had community members who were arrested on their way to go receiving life-saving care. CASA member Elias, who had open heart surgery a year prior and was having to go to dialysis a couple of times every week, who was arrested by ICE on his way to dialysis treatment, missed his treatment that day. And although we were able to advocate for him to be released later that night, him missing that treatment caused his health to significantly decline, and he passed away a couple of months later as a direct result of that mistreatment.
It was August of 2025 when the president issued the state of emergency order. By September, we had filed our lawsuit. We had a hearing before the judge, and on December 2nd of 2025, she issued an order ordering the government to cease its unlawful policy. We had a few months of reviewing the government's arrest records to see whether they were complying with the court's order. They were not. So in March, we were back in court asking the court to enforce this order. The fight continues, and we are going to keep fighting the government with every legal tool at our disposal, and we will ensure that our community members are safe and are able to participate in community life as everyone should be able to.
Our ultimate goal with this case is that our immigrant friends and neighbors can continue to live as full members of the community in DC. We don't want to live in a city where people feel like they need to fear before they step out of their home to go to work, before they bring their kids to school. Nobody in this city should feel like any day they could be picked up off the street for no reason other than the color of their skin.
Good afternoon. I'm Ryan Downer, Legal Director of the Washington Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. I'm here to present the Alfred McKenzie Award. The McKenzie Award was established to recognize clients whose dedication and courage have significantly advanced the cause of civil rights. This year, we are proud to present this award to We Are CASA. From its beginnings in a church basement in Maryland to a premier immigrants' rights organization with nationwide scope, We Are CASA has spent decades building power and advancing justice in immigrant communities. A membership-based organization, CASA's ranks have grown to include 190,000 lifetime members across 46 states. CASA has been a vital partner of the committees going back at least a decade. In 2017, we fought together to uphold DACA and defend dreamers from deportation. But current circumstances have made that relationship stronger than ever. We Are CASA has stood on the front lines as the current administration has waged a campaign of fear and terror against millions of immigrants, including right here on the streets of DC. In the past year alone, We Are CASA has fought to maintain birthright citizenship all the way to the Supreme Court. It has stood with WLC as we defend the rights of TPS holders from Venezuela, Cameroon, and Afghanistan. It has championed the cause of CASA member Kilmar Abrego Garcia in the face of his continued persecution. They've stood with him every step of the way, including last week when a judge in Tennessee finally dismissed trumped-up federal charges against him. As you just saw up on the screen, this past December, a coalition of civil rights organizations, including WLC and We Are CASA, filed a lawsuit challenging the government's practice of arresting immigrants without warrants and without probable cause. CASA's efforts and community ties facilitated the collection of dozens of harrowing immigrant stories that turned into evidence of DHS's unlawful policy. We fought together and we won together. Since the injunction, the number of warrantless immigration arrests in the district has plummeted to nearly zero. In a year that has been at times personally draining and depleting, a bright spot for me has been getting to work directly with the advocates at We Are CASA. They are strategic, they are committed, they answer my signals at all hours, and they are tireless in the face of unprecedented attacks on organizations that fight for immigrants. We Are CASA has never hid, never held back, and never given up the pursuit of justice. Here to receive the McKenzie Awards is Amma Frimpong and others from CASA. Friends, it is my honor to present the 2026 Alfred McKenzie Award to We Are CASA.
Those are powerful stories. They're a clear reminder of what is possible when WLC and its pro bono partners act swiftly and strategically. That kind of rapid response doesn't happen by accident. It depends on having the resources in place to move when moving matters most. As Joanne has told us, the fight for civil rights and equal justice requires an all-of-society response. We all have a role to play. Today, we're inviting all of you to become partners in justice and to support the vital work of the Washington Lawyers Committee. On your tables, you'll find cards with QR codes, like this one, that you can scan, which will take you directly to a secure donation page. You open your phone's camera app, you point the camera at the QR code, you tap the link that appears on your screen, and you'll be taken to our One Cause donation page. You can see on the screens here. Once there, you can enter your donation amount and payment information. Tap Donate or Complete Donation to submit your gift. You will receive a confirmation once your donation is successful. Your name and gift amount will be kept anonymous. We can see how much is being donated today with this number. The number will go up as donations are being made. Our goal today is to raise $25,000. $25,000. If we all pitch in, I know we can reach this ambitious goal. We're going to take a break for 15 minutes or so to allow people to complete lunch. If you need help with the technology, raise your hand and someone will be around to help you. Thank you very much. Enjoy your lunch.
I've been nominated just to give a quick IT announcement. Everybody should feel free to stay standing up and congregating. But for those who have tried to use the QR code and are having technical difficulties, if you flip it over and you get onto the Wi-Fi system, you should be able to do so. So I just wanted to let everybody know that. Thanks. If I could please have your attention and people could go back to their seats. We'd like to get everybody wrapped up and get to our action-packed conclusion. Thank you, everybody. I'm really pleased to announce, okay, everybody, if we could just take seats. We've got a little bit more of the program to go. Thank you. While people were having lunch, I am thrilled to announce that we've already broken the live fundraising portion of today. We smashed through the 25,000. We are currently at 44,000 and counting. So if we can get to the 50,000 mark, then we will have made this year's target and exceeded every expectation. So just as a reminder, for those who have had trouble, if you go to the back and you go onto the Wi-Fi network with the password, but then you flip the card back over to the large QR code, that should get you there. Clearly, people in the room have already, for the most part, figured this out because this number is beyond thrilling, but thank you, everybody. My name is Jeannie Rhee, and I'm honored to co-chair this year's committee. Our next Pro Bono Award recognizes the outstanding achievement of Covington and Burling for their litigation on a landmark racial justice case that is surely going to be captured in the history books. Here's their story.
The 2020 school board voted to retire the Confederate school names of Stonewall Jackson and Ashby Lee, which are names that honor Confederate leaders of a movement that were fighting to extend slavery in the United States. And the very same school board, just a few years later, voted to restore those names.
In 2025, we received an order from the court that agreed with the arguments that we made under the First Amendment of the Constitution, that students at the schools may not be compelled to speak messages that they fundamentally disagree with. And the students at the schools were speaking those messages through their participation in athletics at the schools, where they were wearing uniforms that contained the mascot at the school, the Confederate general at the high school. The names of the schools naturally are emblazoned on uniforms and other paraphernalia. The court found that students must not be walking billboards for these messages. At the end of 2025, we went to trial on the remaining claims, and so that included the 14th Amendment claim. This case will inform how courts consider this issue nationwide. And it will either enforce or weaken the constitutional guardrails that apply in the public school environment to ensure that every child receives an equal education in their public school, no matter the state, no matter their background.
I have felt truly honored to have had the opportunity to work with our student plaintiffs, ranging from a young middle school student up to high school students that are now pursuing their college education. These students are so brave and courageous to have stood up and said that they disagree with this action that the school board took. And they were willing to be in the forefront of this case and be advocates for their decision and stand up for what they felt was right.
This is about, quite literally, it's about rights. It's about one's right to be able to walk into a school and not feel necessarily unsettled or uncomfortable or unwelcome, because that is not what students should be feeling. I mean, truly, when a student walks into a school, they should be feeling that they're ready to learn, ready to see their friends even, ready to go, I don't know, have a great day of education. But that's not at all actually what the name puts across.
We could have easily just been like, all right, well, they won. I guess we can't do anything else about it now. But that's not the case. You can always continue fighting for what you believe in.
Congratulations to the Covington Pro Bono team for your inspirational work defending education and racial justice. Having spent decades litigating major cases, I think all of us in the room know what an intensive case like this requires in terms of resources. When the Washington Lawyers Committee tackled this case from soup to nuts, they had to identify and interview student plaintiffs, research and brief legal arguments, identify and prepare expert witnesses, and present a full week-long trial. All of that work cost the Washington Lawyers Committee over $250,000. So again, thank you to everybody's generosity, because that's what allows that kind of litigation to continue. And your support allows organizations like the Washington Lawyers Committee to be able to respond quickly and to say yes to the next big civil rights case that walks into the door. Up next, we're proud to present the Outstanding Achievement Award to Crowell and Mooring for their work on a major housing conditions case involving Franklin Arms, an apartment building located in the Brooklyn neighborhood in Northeast DC. Here is their story.
I lived at Franklin Arms from 2016 to 2024. And when I originally moved there, what drew me to coming there was that the neighborhood had kind of like a New York vibe, but also more of a community family vibe.
The Washington Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights started working with the Franklin Arms apartment building back in 2022 or 2023. Tenants there were reporting a lot of significant housing concerns that were affecting health, affecting livability in their apartments.
Some of the other residents had issues pertaining to mold in their units that had been like I guess bleach sprayed over or painted over, but not actually remedied. Some of them were actually complaining about respiratory issues, including their children. We have folks who complained that their water was like brown, sometimes it looked like coffee colored, it was coming out of the faucets. We had a gas leak that had essentially grown, and we were like one lighter flick or turning on a stove away from this building, apparently, blowing up.
We had falling plaster coming down from people's ceilings into their beds, into their bathrooms, into their showers. Some of our clients had rats or mice or cockroaches just rampant throughout their apartments. There was no elevator for almost a year. The elevator doors would sometimes open and there'd be no elevator there. So people could, were in danger of falling into the elevator shaft. Some of our clients had no heat, no hot water, intermittent hot water. There were exposed wires, there were exposed pipes that were too hot and were burning people.
Tenants at the Franklin Arms building had been dealing with these housing conditions issues for years. The landlord would come out, maybe do some repairs, oftentimes say, we'll come back and do some of these repairs. And nothing was being done to really deal with the root of these issues.
During the COVID pandemic, the tenants became very close to one another, and they really looked out for one another, and they became a family. And so many of the tenants had extremely deep ties to others in the building and did not want to leave. And that's really, I think, how the tenant association came to be formed and become powerful, and really reached out to Washington Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights to try to change their situation, because they did not want to leave the building. They really wanted to stay in place. So it's very, very important to us and to our clients that we try to resolve the case successfully and quickly to improve the housing conditions in the building for all of the tenants. So we followed a double track. We litigated very aggressively, while we also were attempting to mediate and settle the case. And ultimately, we were successful.
It is important for our community to understand that the legal support and organizing go hand in hand. You cannot depend on specifically just legal support to get you through, to get you liberation. It does require you to have to organize, to work with your community, and for your community and our legal partners to build a relationship. And I believe that that is where we'll start to talk about how law and things start to update and change and transition.
The work reflected in that video is a reminder of how important it is to aid our neighbors right here in the District of Columbia, to support hardworking families struggling to provide safe, decent housing for their children. And every day, the Washington Lawyers Committee works to ensure that all DC families have a place they can call home that is safe and that is secure. In this case, the Washington Lawyers Committee worked with the Tenants Association to force the landlord to fix the collapsing ceilings, the pervasive mold, the dangerous gas leaks, and the widespread rat infestations. Housing justice is work that is time and resource intensive. So again, just one last reminder before we get to the final award. For those of you who haven't already given, if you can find it, to go to the QR code and to give, we are eternally grateful. We're now to the very final award, which is the Wiley A. Branton Award, and it is the most prestigious honor bestowed by the Washington Lawyers Committee. To give you just a little bit of history and context, in 1956, Wiley Branton, alongside Thurgood Marshall, sued the Little Rock School Board, challenging the school board's refusal to desegregate despite the Supreme Court's Brown versus Board of Education decision just 2 years earlier. The Little Rock case went to the Supreme Court, which led to the desegregation of Central High School. In 1962, Branton was selected as the first executive director of the Southern Regional Council's Voter Education Project. The Atlanta-based project registered over 600,000 Black voters in 11 states and helped create the momentum that led to the 1965 Voting Rights Act. In 1965, when Branton moved to Washington, D.C., he became the executive director of President Lyndon Johnson's Council on Economic Opportunity. He later served as head of the Voter Registration Fund before becoming the dean of Howard University Law School here in the city. This award honors members of the legal community whose careers embody a deep and abiding commitment to civil rights, like Wiley Branton. Joining us today in presenting the award are Peter Keisler and Loretta Lynch. It is my privilege to introduce them. Peter led the Justice Department Civil Division and held multiple senior DOJ roles, including Acting Attorney General under President George W. Bush. After his government service, Peter chaired the Supreme Court and appellate practice at Sidley and Austin
and he's currently a member of the Washington Litigation Group Steering Committee. Please join me in welcoming Peter.
Thanks so much, Jeannie. I'm very grateful for the opportunity today to help present, together with the great Loretta Lynch, the Wiley A. Branton Award. It's a great privilege, both because of whom the award is named for and because of whom today it's going to. As to whom it's named for, as Jeannie said, Wiley Branton was the heroic Arkansas lawyer who filed the successful school desegregation case in Little Rock 70 years ago alongside Thurgood Marshall. And that litigation would ultimately have to confront a governor who called out the National Guard simply to stop 9 children from entering a school. Wiley Branton filed that complaint in 1956. The Civil Rights Division was created in 1957. At the time, it didn't look anything like the Civil Rights Division we've become familiar with. Very few of the statutes that we rely on today were even on the books. There was no established enforcement apparatus. There was no cadre of experienced personnel. The division at the time was staffed with fewer than 24 lawyers. But those lawyers showed up for the children of Little Rock. The new Civil Rights Division helped develop and litigate the legal theory that supported President Eisenhower's decision to federalize the Arkansas National Guard and send in the 101st Airborne to enforce the court's orders and protect the students. A lot would change, both at the Civil Rights Division and more broadly at the Justice Department in the years that followed, but one thing didn't. The Civil Rights Division continued to be one of the most important sources of the Justice Department's moral core. And things changed in ways from administration to administration, but there was broad continuity on the fundamentals. And the strongest reasons for that continuity were the career public servants at the Civil Rights Division, its institutional memory and its conscience. These were the attorneys, of course, and there were also the non-attorney professionals, the analysts and legal assistants and administrative personnel and investigators, all of whom were central participants in the work, and all of whom, attorneys and non-attorneys alike, were really proud to be serving there. So that takes me to whom the award is going to today. The men and women of the division who've recently been separated from the department. They were doing such important work, and there were so many impactful cases I saw just during my time at the department. Some of them were brought to right individual wrongs. Some of them were brought to fix broader problems going forward. Some of them were brought to strengthen democracy itself. I remember, for example, when I was at the department, the Civil Rights Division brought a series of cases under Section 203 of the Voting Rights Act to enforce its language requirements. Those statutory requirements were enacted because Congress recognized that many Americans rely heavily on languages other than English, and there are a variety of processes and practices that can be engaged in for voter registration and balloting that would effectively exclude those communities from participating in the most fundamental exercise of their basic constitutional rights. That enforcement effort resulted in immediate and dramatic increases in voter registration and literally thousands of additional multilingual poll workers in the jurisdictions across the country. These were concrete steps that increased the accessibility and the fairness of elections. And I think of those federal cases now in particular because of the shift in the federal role and the reality that some of the most significant challenges to voter participation and fairness are today coming from inside the federal government itself. And the idea that the federal government today would be bringing affirmative enforcement action to protect the rights of these communities to access the voting system seems like kind of a distant dream. There were countless other worthy cases, but I'm just going to mention one other that was brought at about the same time, the prosecution of James Ford Seal, who was one of the killers back in 1964 of Henry D. and Charles Moore. Henry D. and Charles Moore were 2 black teenagers who were hitchhiking in Mississippi. James Seal was one of the leaders of a group of Klansmen that kidnapped them beat them brutally, and then tied heavy weights to them and threw them in the river to drown. The local sheriff was a fellow Klansman, and no charges were brought at the time. But 43 years later, in 2007, the Civil Rights Division reopened the case, brought Seal to justice, tried and convicted him, and sent him to prison. And I think of that case today for a couple of reasons. First, it was, of course, extraordinarily important, and in ways that even extended beyond addressing that specific injustice, as important as that was. It helped expose how many civil rights killings had been forgotten. It helped spur efforts to document the history of racial violence in the country, and it helped inspire in the future years many more such efforts on seemingly cold cases. Today, I think that case is also important as a microcosm of what we've lost in the past year or so. The lead prosecutor in that case is just one of hundreds of people from the Civil Rights Division who concluded that they had to leave jobs they loved and that they were so proud to hold, or who were otherwise forced out. The actions of the administration that led to this massive loss of brains and talent and experience and dedication and integrity are a tragedy for the department and for the country. And those are the people we're honoring today. But finally, a case like Seal, which reached across generations, isn't just about the particularly horrific context in which it arose. It also underscores for me, in a much more general sense, the durability of the principles that underlie this work and the persistence of the people that did that work across all the different areas of law in which the Civil Rights Division has been engaged. The rupture at the department is causing a lot of harm and heartbreak, but the values the people of the Civil Rights Division worked for are larger and stronger than any particular moment in time. Occasions like this are a reminder, I think, that those values will persevere and, I believe, again, prevail, in no small part because of the people that we are honoring today and the others whom they have and will inspire. So thank you for allowing me to be part of this important tribute. And we will now hear from some of the alumni of the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division.
The Civil Rights Division is considered the crown jewel of the Justice Department. The career men and women who make up the Civil Rights Division are anchoring that crown jewel, and they are there regardless of administration to do the critically important work of fighting discrimination in every community in this country.
People may not understand that we are working hard every day to ensure compliance with the law, to ensure compliance with our civil rights laws in particular. That may not result in a splashy headline in the news, but it can result and does often result in significant changes in people's lives.
The one that stands out was in 2021. It was a case against the Cumberland Solid Waste Department in Tennessee. It was a sexual harassment charge that came to us involving 10 women who were alleging that their direct supervisor was sexually harassing them. It was actually physical assault. It was sexual assault. And over a period of time, he was assaulting these women, mainly because they were vulnerable women. We came in and we were able to investigate and bring that case. And for $1.1 million that divided among those 10 women changes to the Cumberland Solid Waste Department. These women really thought they had no recourse, that no one would listen to them, until we sent 2 lawyers to Tennessee to meet with them. Because we have jurisdiction in Civil Rights Division to criminally prosecute people, we referred the matter to the criminal section in the Civil Rights Division, and they prosecuted this individual, and he is now in prison for the acts that he did against these women.
One of the cases that is meaningful for me involved discrimination that occurred to Arab and Muslim tenants after 9/11. Arab and Muslim tenants living in the San Francisco Housing Authority were being subject to all sorts of violence, intimidation, and harassment. For instance, on the anniversary of 9/11, a brick was hurled through the window of one of their homes. Graffiti was spray painted on their homes, identifying them as Arab and Muslim, harassment, intimidation, all sorts of violence against them just because they're Arab and Muslim. And when they complained about it to the manager, he didn't do anything. And so the Civil Rights Division ended up filing a lawsuit on their behalf. And we ended up reaching a settlement that was ordered by the court that provided compensation for the families, got them alternative, safe housing, and changed policies and procedures to make sure it didn't happen again. And I think it's one of the examples of how the Civil Rights Division can adapt to a historic moment that causes discrimination and addresses that discrimination.
In 1999, the Supreme Court, in a case called Olmstead v. LC, said something that was very simple, but also incredibly profound. And that's that unnecessary institutionalization of people with disabilities is discrimination, is a civil rights violation. One example I can give is a case, US v. Florida, which involved children with disabilities, babies, toddlers, adolescents who needed medical support, needed nursing care, and rather than providing that in families' home, providing that support to families in their communities, Florida chose to place those children in institutions, in this case, nursing homes designated for the elderly. So they lived their entire childhoods there, away from their families, away from their neighborhoods and their communities. My colleagues went down, they spent years interviewing hundreds of family members who desperately wanted their children to live with them and just needed the support that the state could provide. Ultimately, through litigation, Florida was required to make those changes, to change the way they approached people with disabilities and provide the supports needed so that those children can grow up with their families.
The current administration has just devastated the Civil Rights Division, and honestly, it has been completely heartbreaking. It has been painful. It has been anger-inducing to watch the careermen and women be thoroughly disrespected for their expertise, discounted for their work, having their cases some of which have taken years to build, be thrown out, discarded, dismissed. It's been pretty unbelievable, honestly.
This is not just a moment where we see the administration setting new priorities or putting forth new goals. This is an administration that is literally unraveling the hard work that has been carried out by the career staff of the Civil Rights Division. And from any issue, whether it's defense of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, our most important federal civil rights law, or standing up for crime victims, the victims of police violence, hate crimes, we literally are seeing the Civil Rights Division abandon its fundamental mission.
The challenge ahead is not to simply build back the Civil Rights Division as it was in January of 2025. If that's all that happens, it'll be a failure. Because what we have regrettably learned is that they came in, they wanted to eviscerate norms, they have done that. They wanted to ignore laws, they have done that. And what we have to do now is make sure we can rebuild the Civil Rights Division that embodies those norms, but fortifies them so that future administrations who have nefarious motives are unable to carry them out.
Well, Dr. King talked about the need to ensure that we're always bending that arc towards justice, and it is the mighty hand and the brilliant mind of the career staff of the Civil Rights Division who have helped to do just that. For decades, they have labored and they have toiled to bend that arc towards justice. They have worked to ensure equal justice under law for all, and without them in place right now, our nation suffers. But I have full faith and confidence that we will have an opportunity to rebuild and to get back, and that the career staff of the Civil Rights Division will be the very first ones to raise their hands.
I now have the great pleasure and honor to introduce Loretta Lynch, a storied government servant with a long career at the Justice Department, starting on the line as a prosecutor, multiple stints as the U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District of New York, culminating as the former Attorney General. Following her extensive government service, Loretta returned to private practice, advising clients on complex government and internal investigations, as well as high-stakes litigation. I've had the privilege of working with Loretta, and I'm profoundly grateful to call her my teacher, my mentor, and my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Thank you all so much for that warm welcome. Jeannie, thank you so much for that kind introduction. Thank you also for your friendship, for the work that we have done together, for the courage and heart you've shown in every venture that you have undertaken. So thank you for that. I am so happy to be here with all of you today. I was talking with people outside earlier, and people were talking about the numbers of people who'd made the luncheon and the spirit that was in the room. And someone said, yes, it's like a huge convention. And I said, no, it's like a family reunion. And I am tremendously delighted to be home with all of you. I want to thank my co-presenter, Peter Keisler. I'm delighted to join you, Peter, in co-presenting this year's Wiley Branton Award. And also, let's congratulate again all of the award recipients today. But this award, the Wiley A. Branton Award, is particularly important this year, in this moment, at this time. You know, if this year were denoted on a commission, it would read, the year of our Lord 2026, and of the United States of America, the 250th. Yes. And I think you've got some things going on this summer that are going to talk about that. But look, it's indeed important to celebrate, to go back and look at where we come from. It's a wonderful thing how a ragtag group of colonies threw over what was then a global superpower. But as we celebrate our country's founding, it is more important than ever that we also celebrate the work of today's honorees, all of them. But I particularly want to highlight the distinguished alumni of the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department, because for years, this work has stood at the intersection of the tension that has always been at the heart of our country. How do we make real the promise of America, especially for those who only bear the burdens of America? How do we make real the promise of America for those who only seem to always bear the burdens of America? This was the life work and the mission of Wiley Branton, and it was the mission as well of our next group of honorees. Now, as we have been talking about, as we have seen, to say that that work that we honor today faces severe headwinds is to utter a profound understatement. We are standing here in a legal landscape that has ushered in the end of America's second Reconstruction. That's where we are. We are watching our country embark upon a headlong dash back to the 50s. And it is completely unclear if the stopping point is 19 or 18. And what is particularly painful to all of us who love the law, who have had a life of the law, and who have benefited from the law's efforts to uplift everyone, is to see the law used as that instrument of regression, to see it turned on people whose only crime is coming here for a better life, answering the invitation that we give. And in doing so, strengthening our communities, uplifting our way of life. Used against those who are leaning against the most fundamental ideals in the spirit of those rebels of 250 years ago. Exercising their right to peacefully protest, to assemble, to speak out when they see something that is wrong. We see the law being used to push back on all of that. And you know, as we look back again on our founding, when our Bill of Rights, there's a whole other amendment before you get to the second one. And that's the one that we're here to uplift in all the work that's done today. Now, it's important to face this reality. It is. But it is also important to see it for what it truly is. It is a backlash to the years of progress that have been made, painstakingly and painfully over generations. It's a backlash to the success of the work that's been done by so many in this room. This, too, is America's pattern. Backlash follows progress like night follows day, like Jim Crow follows Reconstruction. But it is also important, as we deal with the rage that we see and the fear that underlies it all, don't ever lose sight of that. It's important to focus that we recognize why these regressive efforts of today are so virulent. Why are they so determined to erase so many of our efforts on behalf of our beloved country? And know this, and do not ever forget that what we are seeing now is a direct reaction to the power that we all represent. We who believe in justice and equality and work to make it real. We are still a force in this country. We still have the strength of our convictions. We still represent those people 250 years ago who stood up and said, we know what kind of a country we want to be. And know this also, that the push to erase that history, to erase our connection to that history and our diverse stories, it's because they hold up a mirror to this country's great promise, and it is great promise, but also its flaws. The push to suppress the vote, it is because the vote is so powerful. It's the fulcrum of democracy. It gives voice to those who have long been shut out of shaping their communities, of shaping their states, of their lives, and this nation. So yes, these are challenging times. These are difficult times. We are all being tested. Our faith in our institutions, our faith in our procedures, our faith in the law, our faith in the story of what makes us America. It's all being tested. But we must never forget that our greatest progress has so many times come after our darkest trials and tribulations. And also, as we see through the work that we honor today and will commemorate soon, this has never been easy. It has never been an easy task to have this country live up to its founding ideals. Our path to equality has always had twists and turns and outright reversals. But we do not stop. We do not give up, because at every turn, when these struggles have indeed threatened to tear us apart, and this is not the first time, it truly is not, we have turned to the law, to reconnect ourselves with our highest principles, to give voice to those who are fighting oppression, to give hope to those who are seeking to participate fully in this great American experiment, and to knit us back together and to find common ground. These are our values, these are our beliefs, and when we hold on to them, we do great things. Now, again, in the current environment, I'm often asked if I think the rule of law itself will even hold during this challenging time. But the reality is, my friends, the rule of law has actually never been guaranteed equally to everyone in this country. The very work we honor today is proof of that. And as that very work has shown, though, the rule of law is what we choose to make it. Our choice, our hands, our work, our labor. Challenging times, yes. We've had challenging times before. That does not mean that the fight is over. It doesn't mean that the commitment to justice has flagged, and it does not change our own personal commitment to the rule of law, and it doesn't change our obligations to the work that has to be done. And so, as we come here today to honor this work and to honor these ideals, let us never forget what those of you who manned the ramparts at the Department of Justice have accomplished in just your own brief time. Because of your efforts, schools were pushed to desegregate. You did that. Because of your efforts, voting rights were upheld for those whose path to the ballot box had been blocked for generations. You did that. Disabled Americans were finally able to access their own country. You did that. And our LGBTQ friends and family members were finally seen. You did that. You have pushed forward on some of the most challenging issues facing society, from the civil rights cases we've heard about to the issue of law enforcement's relationship to the community it serves. You did all of that and so much more. You've helped people that you'll never meet and who will never know your names, but whose lives are infinitely changed for the better. You all did that. And always know it mattered that you were there. And also know how incredibly proud I was to stand with you during my time at the department, and how honored I am to continue to stand with you today. Now, I know that these past several months have been hard. They have been. They have been challenging in ways that you could never have imagined just 18 months ago. We now bear witness to the unraveling of so many of your efforts. And I know that you, like me, are often asked, how does it feel to watch a legacy being torn down? And of course, it is painful. But what I've learned over the years, and what I want you all to know and to hold on to, from the very people on whose behalf we all fought, is that a legacy is more than just the cases brought, the regulations that were passed, the laws that were written. A true legacy lives on in all of those people whose voices were uplifted, whose lives were changed, and all of those people to whom hope was given. People who for generations never thought there was anyone in their government who listened to them. None of that goes away. Once people have that feeling, they never forget it, and it fuels the change to come. Now, so many of us were indeed privileged to have as our professional home the Department of Justice. It is the only cabinet agency named for an ideal. And I know from personal experience, leaving that home can be wrenching. It can be painful. But I'm here to also tell you, you never really leave the Department of Justice. You take it with you wherever you go. You bring it along to new challenges. You infuse new ventures with the mission that you learned there, with the ideals, with the commitment to do the right thing for the right reasons. And now more than ever, the world needs that ethos. We need you bringing that spirit to all of your new ventures, so that as we begin to rebuild, and rebuild we will, we have the foundation of your work, your efforts, your commitment, and your energy. And as you carry the department forward everywhere you go, know this: my wish for you today, that you remain idealistic enough to believe that we can always make a difference, realistic enough to know that progress will always be a challenge, and wise enough to know that it is the struggle that defines us. So I want to thank you all for letting me spend some time with you here today at our family reunion. I want to thank the members of the Washington's Committee for letting me join them in honoring these stalwarts of the Civil Rights Division. And let us never forget that on more than one occasion and in so many ways, they have saved the soul of this nation. And in so doing, they've shown all of us the way. They are indeed the light that we seek. They are an example for all of us. They are this year's distinguished recipients of the Wiley A. Branton Award. They are the alumni of the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. And I'm truly delighted to welcome Katie Wolf to accept the award on their behalf. Join me in celebrating them.
I do, right here. Thank you. Imagine this times 10 or 15 and what it's like to get to work with this every day for over 2 decades. It was truly, truly an honor. Good afternoon. On behalf of the career alumni of the Civil Rights Division, I want to thank the Washington Lawyers Committee for this extraordinary honor. And to former Attorney General Lynch and former Acting Attorney General Keisler, thank you for your service, your support, and your kind and inspiring words. Today's program has been incredible. To be in this company and to receive an award named for Wiley Branton is to be reminded, just when we need it, that the law is not a self-executing set of principles. It requires vigilance, persistence, and resilience, attributes that Wiley Branton embodies. And even if you have those, if you're lucky, you may experience the occasional victory or even just forward movement in making the promise of equal opportunity or equal protection a reality. That's really what a career in the Civil Rights Division was for myself and my colleagues. We were lucky, we knew it, and we wouldn't have traded it for anything. And so we went to the office on January 20th, 2025, as we had on so many prior January 20th, ready to provide counsel, to adapt, to assist the new administration, understanding changing policies would happen. And in fact, I was naively excited about sharing the work that my colleagues had done with the new administration. How could they not see the incredible talent, the work that had gone into the cases that were pending before them to move forward? But it became very clear very quickly that this wasn't just a policy shift. It was nothing short of the hollowing out of a sacred trust that we held so close every time we walked in that building. We watched as over 2/3 of our colleagues, civil rights expert with combined centuries of experience, were forced out or forced to conclude that they could no longer serve with integrity. There was a profound sense of professional grief for our individual colleagues, for the institution, but mostly for the work that we had to leave behind and that we weren't sure would be picked up again. And a fear that if the division was dismantled from within, that the mission might not survive. But this is not a eulogy. It's a testament to the resilience and courage shown by recipients of this award year after year, and a recognition that you can hollow out a building at 950 Pennsylvania Avenue, but you cannot hollow out a mission. The expertise that left the department did not vanish, it migrated. The people honored today carried their commitment to civil rights beyond the walls of the Justice Department, continuing that work wherever they now serve. Across the country, former Civil Rights Division attorneys and staff have advanced that mission, joining civil rights organizations like Lawyers Committee, serving in state and local government, moving into law firms, and working along countless others still fighting for justice. Some have also built new efforts of their own. Red Line for Civil Rights, a project now housed at Democracy Forward, is just one of those. More than 24 former division staff and attorneys came together on their own time to build it, led by former division leaders who believed the moment demanded careful documentation of what was happening to the work we care so deeply about. Today, Red Line carries forward the same fact-based approach we used at DOJ, now to document the changes in civil rights enforcement and make them visible to the public, advocates, and policymakers, so that we can bear witness to what is happening as we move forward and think about a better Justice Department in the future. But just as importantly, we saw and continue to see that as the federal government stepped back, civil society stepped forward. To the advocates here, when DOJ retreated from protecting the ballot box, from protecting communities at the mercy of unconstitutional policing, or from protecting trans youth and adults from statutory and constitutional harms, you accelerated. You filled the gap with pro bono hours, with impact litigation, with new partnerships and resources to fight the good fight, to demand a better and more equal America for all who call it home. And you looked at us and you saw us and you said, come over here and work with us and join us in that fight. And we are incredibly grateful for that. So if the mission is now more decentralized than it has ever been, I choose to believe that it is stronger for it. We are no longer waiting for a single agency to lead. We are and must be a network of leaders. We accept this award in recognition of our work within the walls of DOJ, but more importantly, as motivation and inspiration for the critically important work we need to continue together. Thank you.
And with that, this concludes this year's Branton Luncheon. Thank you all, and we will see you next year. And another round of applause for this extraordinary group here on the stage.